Hello, friends. It's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead coming to you from Northwest Ohio, where it is chilly. The temperatures dropped pretty significantly, and we had to light the wood stove for the first time of the season this year. And we do not have a furnace in our home. We heat exclusively with wood. It's one of the many things that we do to save money for our family of 11. And if you're ever interested in the future in a video about how much money we save a year by heating with wood versus if we chose to install some type of furnace and heat using electricity or some other type of fuel, I'll do that if you guys are interested in that. But there are many things we do to save money, and that's what I've been bringing you in the series that I've been doing over the last 6 weeks in my homemade versus store-bought cost comparisons. Like I mentioned, we are a family of 11, and food is our largest cost here. We have a lot of hungry mouths to feed. And so we also have dietary challenges. We're dealing with food allergies and a medical diet that I am on. So we go to great lengths to make the safest and healthiest food for our family. But we've also found that not only is making it at home from scratch healthier, and it tastes better, but it also saves us money. It's sort of the opposite of what a lot of people think. People think that the convenient foods that you can purchase at the store or that the fast food that you eat going through the drive-through, they think that those are cheap foods that are obviously cheaper than if you made them from quality ingredients at home from scratch. But my goal in this series is to show you that that isn't the case. I'm purchasing a lot of my ingredients in bulk and organic from places like Azure Standard, and I'll link them in the video description. And so I'm using high quality organic ingredients, and the price making it from scratch, even with those high quality ingredients, is cheaper than some of the cheapest pre-made options you can get at the grocery store. And so you can look past on the playlist that I've made of all of the previous episodes that we've done in this series. And we're going to do more projects in this video to show you how it is cheaper to make it yourself at home. So in this video, I'm going to bring you 4 projects. We're going to make some baby food, we're going to make a pumpkin pie, we're going to price compare oatmeal, and also homemade hot cocoa. So let's go ahead and get started with the baby food. This is one of the things I see people purchasing in the store, and I just want to tell you it is so much cheaper if you just make it yourself at home. In last week's video, I showed you how one small pumpkin that's this size that I'm showing you here, it costs me roughly $2.11 to create 7 cups of puree out of this pumpkin. And we used that puree in last week's video to make pumpkin muffins. And in this week, I'm going to show you a cost breakdown on how you can make baby food from the pumpkin. And then later on, we'll make a pumpkin pie as well. So my cost for $2.11 for 7 cups of puree, that costs me 3.8 cents per ounce for baby food. So the typical baby food that you purchase in the store comes in a 4-ounce jar. So that would cost me, for what I'm making here homemade, 15 cents for a 4-ounce jar. Now let's compare that to some of the options that you can get in the store. For example, Gerber is one of the most popular baby food brands, and they do sell a Gerber pumpkin. Squash is one of the first foods, one of the first vegetables that they do recommend you start with your baby, and so it is a popular baby food. Gerber pumpkin is 23.5 cents per ounce compared to my 3.8 cents per ounce. Another organic, a little more expensive option of baby food you can get in the store is beech nut organic pumpkin, and that you're paying 39 cents per ounce. So if I take my 7 cups of puree and were to put that all into baby food like this, one pumpkin's worth like this would save me $11.05 instead of buying Gerber. It would save me $19.73 if I bought the equivalent amount of the beech nut organic. So we're saving a ton of money on baby food. This is just pumpkin. I could do the same math for you on any other fruit or vegetable. Carrots, peas, you name it, all of the popular baby foods, bananas that people purchase for their babies. And not only is it cheaper, but it's healthier to do it yourself when you get the produce in season. It's full of all of the in-season nutrients, doesn't have any preservatives or anything added to it, and it's fresh for your little baby. So when we roast something like a pumpkin like that, then you saw me just portion it out into little freezable amounts. I think it was 2 tablespoons in each of the little freezable silicone molds that I put the puree into. We can put that in the freezer, and every time baby Abby here wants a little bit of food, I can pull one of those 2 tablespoon cubes out, and we can melt it and let her enjoy it with a spoon like this. Or you'll see next I have this little mesh feeder that I can put one of those cubes inside of, and she can just kind of play with the food in the mesh feeder herself. And so we are just now at 9 months starting more solid foods and letting Miss Abby play around. So I'm busily filling my freezer with all the different types of purees that she likes to experiment with. So for us, it is the season of life where we're focusing on baby foods, but it's also the season of the year when we're focusing on doing our prep for Thanksgiving. It's just a month away, and I wanted to show all of you how much cheaper it is to make a pumpkin pie from scratch than to purchase one in the store. I want to encourage you to try to make a pumpkin pie from scratch this year. It's so easy. It tastes so much better than anything you're going to buy in the store. So let's go ahead and do the math on that. So in a previous episode in this series, I showed you how you can make homemade pie crusts versus store-bought pie crusts, and how the homemade versions only cost you 60 cents per crust. So that's going to be the first cost associated with making our homemade pumpkin pie. You're going to use 1 crust on the bottom, so that's going to cost you 60 cents. Now I will include my pumpkin pie recipe in the video description, but let me just quickly go over the cost of all of those ingredients. So we're going to put 2 eggs in our pumpkin pie filling, and if eggs are about $2 a dozen, that means we have 33 cents of eggs going into our pie. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar to our pie filling, so that equals 29 cents. We have 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon at 54 cents. That's one of the more expensive ingredients. The spices are really what gets you in the pumpkin pie. 3/4 a teaspoon of ginger is going to be 27 cents. 1/4 a teaspoon of nutmeg is 13 cents. 1/4 a teaspoon of salt is 1 cent. 1 3/4 a cup of that pumpkin puree that we made is 53 cents. And then we make our pies dairy-free because we can't have dairy due to a food allergy. And so I'm going to use my homemade cashew milk, which I priced out for you in a previous video. 1 cup of that cashew milk is 23 cents. So if we add the cost of our pie crust, our eggs, our sugar, all of our spices, our pumpkin puree, and our cashew milk, altogether, it cost me $2.93 to make a pumpkin pie. If you're going to do it per slice, that works out to 37 cents per slice. That's for 8 slices in your pie. Can you imagine going to your favorite local restaurant and buying a piece of pie, a slice of pie for 37 cents? It costs so much more than that, and that's even the case in the grocery store if you're going to buy a whole pie. As usual, we're going to do our price comparisons at Walmart, and I'm going to show you the cheapest option available, the Walmart brand Great Value Frozen Pumpkin Pie. So let's say for Thanksgiving you were going to go and buy one of those. You're looking at $5.87 for that pie, which works out to be 73 cents a slice. This is almost double what our homemade pie cost. If you wanted the Marie Callender's pie, it's I found it on sale this time of year. It's more expensive at other times of the year, but on sale it was $5.63 for the same sized pie, which works out to be 70 cents a slice. Also almost double the cost of the ingredients that go into our homemade versions. So for every pumpkin pie we make, we are saving almost $3. That's pretty significant. So you could make it homemade and make double the amount of pie for the same price for your holiday feasts. Just make it yourself. It's so easy. Even my 9-year-old son here can do it with just a little bit of guidance. I think a lot of people get really intimidated by pie making, but it's really fun and it's really easy to do once you get the hang of it. Now, I know around the holidays with your Thanksgiving meal, we get so busy with all of the other foods associated with it, making the turkey and all of the side dishes, that it's so easy to just purchase the pies. It's one of those convenience things we do. But the great thing about pie is that it freezes really well. Obviously, the pies that we price compared in the store were frozen versions. So this is something that you could start making now and make it ahead and put it in the freezer, and you'll have pies all through the holiday season ready to go. So I want to encourage you to try that this year. If you're already buying some bulk pumpkins and you're going to puree it up, try to make your own pumpkin pie. You will not regret it. Not only is it cheaper, but it tastes so much better when it's made from scratch with all the love in it. The next two foods I wanted to cost compare in this video are things that I was always curious about, but I'd never really sat down to do the math, and I thought that I would try that. I want to compare homemade from scratch oatmeal to the instant packets that you can purchase at the store. And I also want to try homemade hot cocoa versus the instant cocoa packs that you can also get at the grocery store. So let's start with the oatmeal and see what it saves us, or if it saves us, to make it at home. These are oat groats. You guys know I like to buy oat groats in bulk, and then I have a roller that I use. It looks like this, and it takes those oat groats, which are the seed of the oat plant, and rolls them out into what you would typically purchase as rolled oats or old-fashioned oats in the grocery store. Now, for those of you that are curious, I'm not doing this because it saves me any money. In fact, the cost per pound is the same when you purchase oat groats versus if you purchase them rolled. So we're not rolling them to save any money. We're doing it for the nutritional benefits. The oats, when they're in the groat form before the seed hull is broken, it retains more nutrition that way. So I guess you could say it saves us money because we're getting more bang for our buck, more nutrients for our buck, which should keep us fuller if we're just breaking and rolling the oat now versus if they were rolled and then as it sat there through oxidation and all sorts of other things, it loses nutrients. But if you're just looking at a 50-pound bag of rolled oats versus a 50-pound bag of oat groats, they're going to cost you just about the same. But let's go ahead and make oatmeal from scratch using our oat groats. Typically, when I make it for my children, I roll 1 quart of oat groats and I soak them overnight, usually with an acid that helps make them more digestible. Then the next morning, I drain the water and I add 1 quart of homemade cashew milk. I'm making apple cinnamon oatmeal this time, so we're going to slice up 2 apples. I'm going to add just 1 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and then we add a little more water just to get it to the right texture as it's cooking and as water evaporates. So let's break down the cost of that. The 1 quart of oat groats costs me approximately $1.62. The homemade milk that I make, 1 quart of it, cost me $1.34, and I will link a video in the description where I priced that out for you in a previous episode in this series. The 2 apples, I'm getting my cost from my last video where we price compared bulk apples that we purchased from a local farmer, and those 2 apples cost me 76 cents. We're going to do our 1 cup of sugar, which is 31 cents, and our 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, which was 21 cents. So altogether, that's $4.51 for 8 cups of oatmeal, which works out to $1.13 per serving or 14.1 cents per ounce. If I were to compare that to the Great Value packets by weight once it's all cooked, the Great Value version costs 7.4 cents per ounce, And if I also compared that to the Quaker version of an apples and cinnamon oatmeal, once it's cooked by weight, it would be 12 cents per ounce. So my homemade version, when it's cooked and everything, 5.6 cents per ounce. And I'm saving lots of money by making it at home. If I were to make this 4 times per month, making that batch 4 times a month, which would be once a week, I'm going to save anywhere between $6 and $20. So yes, if you were ever curious, it definitely does save money to make a big batch like this versus purchasing even the cheapest great value individual packets. And it's also fresher. You're using real apples, and you can have freshly rolled oat groats if you want to boost the nutrition in that. Overall, that's going to save you money. Let's do the same with hot cocoa. Now I'm doing a vegan hot cocoa because we can't have dairy here in our house. So my cost is for cacao powder, I am paying $71.17 for 5 pounds of that. This is raw cacao powder, which is different than the cocoa powder, something like a Hershey's. This is raw and higher in nutrients. So for the 1 cup of that I'm going to add to a batch here, that's $3.56. Then I'm going to add just a 1/2 cup of our cane sugar that we also get from Azure Standard. It's $32.48 for 25 pounds, so that 1/2 cup works out to be 33 cents. And then to those 2 ingredients, we have our homemade cashew milk. I'm doing 2 quarts of that, which is a 1/2 gallon, and that cost me $2.67 in ingredients. And then to that, I also usually add 1 quart of just water to kind of thin it down, because that cacao powder is super rich, and the water just thins it a little bit. So for my total batch of the cacao powder, the cane sugar, and the homemade cashew milk, we have $6.56 for 3 quarts of hot cocoa. I'm also making some homemade marshmallow fluff, which all the way back in the first video in this series, I priced for you to show you how much cheaper this is than purchasing it in the store. So for my hot cocoa, I'm paying 27 cents for an 8-ounce mug of the hot cocoa without the marshmallow fluff. Now, 27 cents per 8-ounce mug isn't necessarily cheaper than dairy-based hot cocoa packets that you could get in the store. It's pretty comparable to something like a Swiss Miss hot cocoa packet that would have dairy in it. But where I'm saving money is comparing this to other vegan versions of a hot cocoa, which the most popular brand at Walmart would cost $1.32 per mug. If I were to purchase Swiss Miss dairy-free hot cocoa packets, I'm looking at $1.82 per mug. So if I compare that to my 27 cents per mug, I am saving a lot of money, which is helpful when you look at the number of mugs that I have to make in a batch for my children. So I'm saving anywhere between $9.28 to $15.20 per batch that I'm making like this of hot cocoa for all of my children, because like I said, we can't have dairy in the home with my son's anaphylactic allergies. The dairy-free foods that you purchase in the store are so expensive, and so the only way that I could do treats like this for my children on a regular basis is if I'm making them from scratch. So if I make cocoa like this once a week in the winter, over the course of the winter, I'm saving anywhere between $148 to $244 by making this homemade for them. And that's huge. And to be honest, sometimes the kids, if it's very snowy out and they're playing in the snow a lot, we have hot cocoa more than once a week. So I know we're saving more money than that. Grocery costs just keep rising. Part of that is the economy. Part of that for us is just that our kids are getting older and bigger and have bigger appetites. But either way, we have to learn how to cut costs around here because food is our biggest expense. And that is my goal in sharing all of this with you, is that cutting costs doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice nutrition. It just means that you might have to sacrifice a little bit of time. And it's worth it, though, for the amount of money that you're going to save. And the time does matter. Either I'm going to have to spend time working more hours in order to have more money to buy the food that I'm not making myself, or I'm going to be spending time cooking the food from scratch at home with the help of my children while I'm spending time with them, so that I don't have to work to spend more money on the convenient store-bought items. So it's all about where you want to spend your time and energy. And for me, I love doing it in my kitchen with my children around me. So I could continue doing these cost comparison videos forever because there are so many things I do in a day to save money in my kitchen. It really never ends. And I will probably come back to this in the future. But in next week's video, I'd like to touch on some different things to kind of sum this series up for the time being. And then we'll readdress this series later on in the winter after I do some other things. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this peek into our kitchen and into our budgeting to show you why we do the things that we do. I've been showing you a lot of these recipes for many, many years. And maybe you've just assumed that I'm doing this solely because we have to, because of food allergies, or we're doing it just because we want to have more control over the nutrition. But honestly, this is the only way that we would be able to afford feeding our children healthy foods. We have to do it ourselves, making it from scratch, if we're going to be able to do it for 9 children. And so I hope that you guys have enjoyed kind of learning a little bit about that, and maybe you've gotten some ideas for how you can slash your grocery costs right now. That's my heart in sharing this with you guys, because I know how grocery costs are increasing and how it's hurting the average family in America's budget. And so hopefully we can be a blessing to you in sharing our tips and tricks. So like I said, we'll be back next week with another video sharing what's going on here at Three Rivers Homestead. I hope that you guys are all staying warm wherever you are. It's starting to really feel like a winter around here. We have some final homestead projects we need to do. I'm going to get my garlic planted next week, and I'm getting my pantry all sorted and put together, and I hope to bring you a tour of everything we were able to preserve this year, and we'll do that soon. But in the meantime, we will be back next week. I hope you guys have a great week, friends. Bye.